and combustion of fossil fuels are primary sources of mineral oils in the environment. We made many investigation, and we always found that usually contamination levels are very low. Background level are around lower than 2 ppm of MOSH and below the limit of quantification that with our method is 0.5 ppm for the MOA. Here I reported some results obtained from olive collected in Friuli in different area exposed to differently to sources of environmental contamination. And what we noticed is that samples coming from areas that were exposed to heavy contamination by industrial sites, for example, steelwork, they had a contamination level that are not so higher than those coming from rural area. And olives from rural area in Istria also showed differences related to the variety, as we can see from this table. And we found higher levels in Pendolino variety linked probably to its greater surface to weight ratio and higher wax content. About the impact of phytosanitary treatment, we know that European regulation authorizes the use of paraffin oil in organic cultivation. And here we have the example of two traces of two of these products and a sample of oil extracted from olives with a profile very similar to one of these. Contamination through phytosanitary treatment is possible. Anyway, if well used, this product usually don't leave so much high level of contamination. For example, in the Greek study, we had the possibility to analyze different pesticides, all used in an olive grove, some of which contained MOSH. This was, for example, K-oil was paraffin oil. But at the end, we found in the olives levels that were only slightly higher than the background level, so around 5-6 ppm. In the Italian study, we found no so high impact due to the pesticide use. We have an example of using Rogor that is a mixture of contain, as you can see, 8% of C9 aromatics, benzene isomers. And anyway, since these compounds are very volatile, they left no residue in the oil. In another sample, we found 15 ppm of MOSH. And in this case, since the product was free of contamination because it was zeolite, we suspected that the contamination source was a leakage of oil from the pump of the atomizer or an oil added to improve the adherence of the product to the plant. So we also have the possibility to analyze samples that that came from Greece, where there is this practice of pruning during the olive harvest, and this we know can lead to high contamination due to the lubricant used in chainsaws. So we analyzed olives from 4 different regions. Here are the results. And we noticed that samples coming from Messina region, where this practice is widespread, they showed a higher level of MOSH with a profile very similar to that of the lubricant used in chainsaw. Also in the Italian study, we analyzed a number of lubricants and greases used in machineries involved in harvesting operation. And many of these products, as you can see, contained a huge amount of MOA. Here we can see the results of the oil extracted from olives, from 15 olive groves in Italy, both before and after harvesting operations. And what we can see is that we noticed a significant increase in about 40% of the sample, with 24% of these exceeding the proposed limit of 2 ppm. Here some example. This is an oil from, this was a sample collected using a vibrating comb, and there was a leak of from the hydraulic circuit that, of course, determined the contamination of the oil. That has, as you can see from the CGC traces, the same profile of the hydraulic oil. And also GC time GC confirmed that this was the source of contamination. Surprisingly, the oil extracted from olives collected from the same grove but using pneumatic combs show the same contamination but at 10-fold lower level. So in this case, the source was probably the oil absorbed by the net during previous harvest. So we identified a critical control point. Here is an example with another harvesting machine. You see, this is a trunk shaker with an umbrella, collecting umbrella. And in this case, based on the GC time GC traces, we identify the contamination source with the grease used to lubricate a part of the machinery that comes into direct contact with the olives. So in this case, we concluded that some harvesting equipment may need redesigns to avoid this contamination. And also this sample was also contaminated with a lubricant, synthetic lubricant, polyolefin-based lubricant. The impact of olive transport was negligible. We can see in the Italian study. Olives were mainly transported in plastic bins or loose in open trailers, and only in 2 cases we see a clear increase in higher than 30%. And here is an example. In some region of Greece, where olives are still transported in jute bag, there is a risk of contamination from the batching oil used to treat the jute fiber, and this can also veiculate MOA. Here we can see more variation along the processing chain at the mill in the Italian study. And what we can see is that over-milling determined increase in most of the sample, but only in few of these, 23%, this increase was higher than 30%. The washing step showed a reduction of the contamination in 60% of the sample, and extraction that include also kneading and extraction determined an evident increase in 2 samples, and here is reported an example. We also studied the effect of washing in the lab by washing olives in separatory funnel with water, with repeated washing. And we found that washing reduced the contamination by 30–50% in post-harvest olives that were contaminated during harvesting. This removal was higher than that observed in meal-washed sample. The washing had no effect instead on olives that have had background MOSH level. Here is an example of a sample, TB1, we see before, where repeated washing determined after 5 washing we found a 50% reduction. Further washing with water did not improve removal, but a subsequent wash with the ethanol achieved 90% removal. This is probably because with ethanol it was possible to remove also these compounds bound to the waxy cuticle. Of course, it's not possible, it's not feasible use ethanol, but maybe it can be studied some alternative sustainable solution to enhance mitigation effect of washing. Here from the Greek study, again, we can see the effect of washing. In 2 samples, we observed an increase of the contamination. And this can be due to the use of dirty recycled water or poor cleaning or of the washing machine, or even dripping, as in this case, of hydraulic oil or lubricant from a pneumatic circuit or lubricated part. Also, we can observe here, we had the possibility to analyze olive paste after different kneading time, and the longer the kneading duration, the higher is the MOC content extracted. Here a comparison between olive oils from the market and that sampled from the mill, and we see that samples from the market were more contaminated, and this suggests a contribution to the post-milling operations. Here now an effect we will see the impact of industrial scale refining on olive oil. We analyzed the refining along the refining step, all the refining steps, 6 lampante olive oil and 2 olive pomace oil. Here are reporting the deodorization condition. And what we found is that in general, the contamination remained fairly constant until bleaching, whereas like we can see from the traces, a net decrease was observed after deodorization, with the removal of 90% of the more lighter fraction, C10-25. If we see total removal, C10-50, we found a removal between 20 and 30%. These are results regarding endogenous N-alkane contained in the oil that gave similar results. And here it was possible to see more precisely the removal rate regarding single compounds that can give some interesting information about the potentiality of refining. I go on, I speed up because I see that there is not so much time. So here we can see the impact of refining on olive pomace oil, and what we see here is that, for example, this sample, we have a higher removal because, of course, the removal rate was depending on the deodorizing condition. In this case, the sample underwent flash distillation at a high temperature, and this was able to remove a higher percentage of the MOA. And here we can see the traces where the removal is well evident. So in black you see the crude olive pomace oil, in blue after bleaching, and in purple after the deodorization. And we see that the removal is up to C35. Here are some data on sample from the market, olive pomace oil from the market, from here we can see that olive pomace oil contain a huge amount of mineral oil, and especially MOA, you see that on average we found 39 ppm. That is very high value considering the 2 ppm limit that should reach this oil. So now, why olive pomace oil is highly contaminated? There are several reasons. First of all, there is a reconcentration effect, because we know that most of the contamination after physical extraction remain on the pomace and is later extracted with the solvent. So there is a sort of reconcentration of the contamination in the solvent extracted oil, and the lower is the residual oil, the highest the reconcentration effect. Then we can see also from this picture that pomace is stored improperly, so it's exposed to motor vehicle exhaust, fallout for the atmospheric particulate. So old bulldozer may lose motor oil, hydraulic oil, so all this may contaminate the product. So also from these results from an old work, we can see that the contamination increase with the storage time, while drying and solvent extraction usually do not significantly affect the mineral oil content. Here we give a look to the effect of bleaching, because when we see at the total MOA by LCGC, we don't see so big differences after bleaching, because most of the contamination is due to mono and diaromatics, and compounds with 3 and more benzene ring are present at very low level. And but these are the most toxic part of MOA, and we can see from these 2 traces of the oil before and after bleaching that after bleaching, many of the spots we can see here are removed, reduced, and these are heavy MOA with 3 or more benzene ring, little alkylated, that is the most toxic compounds. Here is the example of a compound tentatively identified as 1-methyl-anthracene. So, in conclusion, we can say that regulatory frameworks are progressively establishing maximum permissible level. Contamination may occur at multiple points along the production chain. In the Italian study, has emerged, the harvesting emerged as one of the most important critical points, but many other entry points throughout the whole supply chain, of course, can contribute to increasing contamination. Preventive measures such as adopting good agricultural and manufacturing practices, limiting contact with mineral oil-based lubricant, or replacing this lubricant with product more free, and implementing mitigation action, of course, are essential to minimize mineral oil residue and ensure food safety in the olive oil industry. Important also dissemination of knowledge to stakeholders and operators, that is crucial for proper implementation. And here the example of guidelines that were published by FOA in Italy. Of course, ongoing research is the research is going on and aims at refining analytical methods and focused towards the most toxic MOA and mitigation strategies. I have concluded my presentation. I would like to thank my research group, Laura, Chiara, Farnaz, including Luca, who is no longer part of the team, but contributed to many of the results I have shown you. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sabrina, for a very detailed presentation with data to show that they're...
I have finished?
Yes. You can hear me? Yes, thank you for your presentation and a lot of data to support the evidence that there's contamination in different places in the olive oil production. So shifting now to our next presentation, Tullia.
So I think we can start, okay? You can hear me. There are some different terms that were adopted by European Union for the food fraud, and you quickly can see them here. So product tampering, including adulteration with dilution, addition, and substitution, record, so documental tampering, and other non-compliances. So, what kind of fraud regards olive oil? Two are the core fraud. Oh, this is. One is related with purity, so adulteration, blending with other oils, and the other one with quality. So, for example, category, origin, or process not permitted. Many methods, we do not have to, it is important to underline that many methods, many measurements are available for olive oil detection of the quality and authenticity. And these methods, if applied, can give many answers also now. Here you see in a paper on food control what are the main problems that we asked at the national contact point of the Alert and Cooperation Network of the EU. Misrepresentation, mislabeling, dilution, PDO, PGI infringements, motion MOA, as we just heard, or pesticide and contaminant present. Every year, the European Commission publishes an annual report, Alert Cooperation, from the Alert and Cooperation Network, that is a summary of the work of the Rapid Alert System, the RAF, the Administrative Assistance and Cooperation Network, and national contact points. And for this year, you can see the results. Fats and oils are here. Have a look at the dietary food, food supplements, fortified food, 10 times higher the number of fraud. Is that the perception of the consumer? No. The perception of the consumer is that olive oil can be terrible. It's not true. These are official data. You can see that we have all this before, okay? And then we have fats and oil. Within fats and oil, the first is sunflower. Then we have olive oil, obviously, palm, other vegetable ghee. Now coconut is very trendy. and this is, can be a problem, and others. Consider that this is much more the situation of Europe, so where the olive oil is really highly marketed. So you see that there is a difference between the consumer perception, high risk, often amplified by media and social network, and the real situation. What kind of fraud? Most cases involve non-compliances or suspected fraud. Only 3% of possibility frauds cases are, for example, mineral oil or pesticides, are something that should be really to be under extreme control. Obviously, the situation should be taken in attention, but this is the result. There are many analytical tools for the origin proposed. Now, just we can see what are the solutions. The isotopic analysis, on my opinion, not only my opinion, also from the literature, to detect the origin is the most important. You see here a number, I will leave the presentation, a number of articles on it, considering the ratio of specific isotopes. This is an example of what you can find about isotope evaluation in literature. Obviously, extremely important is to have calibrations that need to be shared. Polyphenols can be useful for the detection of origin. Strictly, in theory, yes, but as a practical example, no, because the overall phenolic profile is dependent from many other aspects except the cultivar and the origin, the geographical origin, such as, for example, the extraction methods, the temperature, the shelf life, the conservation of the oil. So you see that while we have 1,680 documents for polyphenol, only a small part try to see if they can be useful to detect the origin. Maybe in future, with artificial intelligence, it's possible to use all the trace to see compliant or non-compliant in respect with a specific high value extra virgin olive oil. And DNA was a dream. Saying, okay, with the DNA we have solved the problem. We take the DNA and the oil everything is detected. The answer is, obviously for the botanical traceability, is no. Because DNA is present in too small amount into the oil to solve the problem of having contaminants in the same amount. And also, DNA can be useful to identify other oils as only if they are not refined, because refining is removing the small amount of DNA that is already in the oil. So, can be useful for some monovarietal, maybe to see more than X% can be, but is very expensive and is not the right application of genomic. Because it would be perfect for table olives, but not really applicable for olive oil, even if there are many papers, but I'm saying everyday control. And deodorization, what about deodorization? There are methods to detect fatty acid ethyl esters that are indirect markers of deodorization of oil that are perfect, organoleptically perfect, but with high fatty acid ethyl ester, or the count between glycerides and free fatty acids. So these two possibilities are now applied. And in case of panel disagreement. So this is the main problem. The main amount of non-conformities, at least in Europe. But I think it's the same abroad. So when a panel 1 and panel 2, they do not classify in the same way the oil, how can we manage? So it's perfect if they agree, but if they don't, so in this case, only in this case, because we should have in mind that if we want to have olive oil, virgin olive oil, so extra virgin olive oil, with added value, real added value, we cannot give up the panel test. Okay? Otherwise, we can sell something that is very, very low value. But what can we do to enforce the panel test, to align the panels, for example, formulate sensory olfactory reference materials. With Oleum project, we formulated 2 sensory olfactory sensory reference material. One is rancid, and the other one is winey, vinegary. But we need to, at least, for example, formulate also fasty, musty, and others. But we need support for this, and especially someone that wants to market this product all over the world, to make the panels making the same work. So be aligned. Being back in the panel disagreement, another possibility is to have, just when they are in disagreement, target instrumental approaches. So set limit and ranges and achieve finally a classification. So saying, okay, this panel is right, or this other one. So the oil is like that, with this classification on or this other. But the starting point for the calibration, for the instrumental calibration, is to have robustly classified sensory natural reference materials. So it's not like saying, this is rancid for me. No, this is rancid, so it's virgin rancid for 6 panels, or for the majority of them, so can be used to build a calibration. Otherwise, we are building not through calibrations. This is the method we developed. So I go quickly because this is the method, the SOP, so the standard operative procedure. These are the validation studies. This is the final validation study. The method has been published by the IOC as method number 37 and now is provisionally accepted. We will present next week at the European Commission and at the IOC the results of the second IOC study. This is formative. And then, hopefully, we will achieve the final publication. You have seen before, in the slide before, the scope, the principle, and The difference is because the method was developed by FID and MS to give all the laboratories the possibility to be applied, not only those that have an MS detector. This is the path of the method, very long, for a targeted method. So following an ISO validation. So premises, in-house validation, pre-trial, hands-on workshop, full validation, first IOC ring test, publication as provisional, second IOC formative ring test. So we hope that the method will be amply applied. Now we have another instrument, really another instrument that is not against panel, but is for the panel best application. Panel test is very expensive and time-consuming. So both official labs, so labs for official controls, but also companies, before bottling, before blending, they can screen the samples. Because, you see, if you screen 10 samples, just 10 can go at the panel test. Because for the rest, you have the possibility to classify, for example, 90% extra virgin or 90% virgin, so it's not requested the application of panel test. These are screening methods, so quicker methods, mainly untargeted, that can be used to screen the category. And then, so one is GC-MS, and the other is flash gas chromatography. And what about NMR? NMR cannot be applied for the volatile compounds. We tried to distill the compounds and then to analyze by NMR, but without having good results. Can be very, very useful for the purity, but the calibration are not performed with officially recognized samples. The calibration are of the companies producing the NMR. So, as long as they are not shared, this cannot be considered a method that can be applied in the everyday control. And also, it's very expensive, this kind of instrument, commonly used every day in the hospital, where the cost of analysis is not a limit, but for the control of the olive oil, it is a limit. I'm going at the conclusion. What about the artificial intelligence? We are trying to apply at the screening methods and also at the targeted method that is at the IOC. The problems are related with the sustainability, because the computational cost is, can be 100,000 times more with AE rather than the application of a normal chemometric measure such as PLS-DA. And also, the problem could be that we need to control the model, not to give the model the possibility to calibrate, because there are many stakeholders. And if the AE is somehow, we have some distortion, we keep this distortion in the, so we must not, as scientists, spread the idea among consumers that this can solve everything. Can be useful, extremely useful, especially if it's sustainable, with some possibility to reduce the data to be elaborated, but is not the final solution. So, to conclude, can we win this fight regarding olive oil fraud? The answer is yes, if we really want, because we have the instrument, so we have the possibility to fight. There are many oils, such as coconut, avocado, some cold press oils, which are much more, really much more at risk, but the consumer doesn't know. We need to continue to innovate the method. The methods are not, how can I say, we need to go ahead. There is not only the question of artificial intelligence with the method to make them rapid, cost-effective as possible, so every lab worldwide can control the sample with not a lot of amount of money. Collaboration between countries, sharing calibrations and reference materials on the commerce. So, available on the market. Do not give up with measurements. We need to keep measurements, limits, and ranges, even if we work in a non-targeted cloud, I would say, okay? We need to guarantee operator skills, and this is a problem, a big problem now, and chemical analytical competencies. And also, we need to be effective in the opposition to misleading news or misinformation to protect the consumer, but also to protect the olive oil global reputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio, the organizing committee, for the invitation. Good afternoon. It's been a great event so far, and an excellent choice of location. I really enjoyed. Maybe the title is misleading. I like to keep like a didactic approach in this type of event, so that we make sure that everybody understand. Before I start, can I ask who has never heard the word carbon farming? Somebody in the room? Okay, who reads about carbon farming, let's say, once a week? Or reads things about once a week? Once a day? So you, okay. Good start. Why I'm here, I guess. With our company, we try to really promote dialogue, multi-actor dialogue. We do it mostly through research projects and running activities, so that we really help to identify common grounds, because most problems nowadays need to be solved collectively, and so this is what we like to do. But we also, and particularly, we organize the European Carbon Farming Summit. We also participate in the development of actually tools to monitor carbon, so they're called the MRV tools. But we are part of the expert group that is supporting the European Commission in developing the framework that will kind of overrule voluntary carbon markets in the EU. And you know, if you have ever heard about this project, we are involved. I personally coordinate Credible and Go for All. But before continuing, a disclaimer. You know, we work closely with the Commission in the development of the CRCF. Obviously, what I'm telling now or today are my own interpretation and words. I don't speak in the behalf of the Commission. And also, there are many. I mean, carbon farming can cover, as a concept, can cover many things, and today I will focus mostly on the part that is linked to the creation of offsets. So like you actually demonstrate that your activity is generating a climate benefit, and with that you get a certificate you can sell. So this part, because and this is called offset, There is also the element which is more known as insetting, where the value chain kind of enforces certain policies internally to reduce the carbon footprint. And it's all when you get to the farmers, it could also be considered carbon farming, but the way you maybe account or the standard you applied could be a little bit different, so maybe less stringent than offsetting. So this is what I'm talking about. So the definition that we would like to give to carbon farming, and this is not my opinion, is the outcome of the first European Carbon Farming Summit, where we had 300 experts, and through the various conversations, we came out with this general definition, which is a tool to catalyze the transformation of agriculture towards more holistic production models that deliver climate, environmental, and social benefits. And I think I'd like to pause here a second, because it is important to highlight the transformation element, because this is due to two main aspects that we should acknowledge when looking at carbon farming opportunities. First, I'm not aware of any simple practice that a farmer can do that could have a massive impact on carbon balance. It's not that we have some, powder of seeds or specific, agronomic practices. Like, I generally don't do it, but if I would do it, that would turn upside down my carbon balance. Generally, you need to do many things to improve your carbon balance. You need to, change strategy. It's kind of a simple example would be moving from a conventional agriculture towards an organic system. Then those are the changes that will enable you to drastically change your carbon footprint, and therefore generate solid numbers that you can say, I generate certificates and I get rewarded for. This is one part. And the other part, which is important to remember, is that in the voluntary carbon scene, standards have evolved so that those that buy for a carbon credit want to buy for a climate action. So voluntary carbon market haven't evolved as a mechanism to create a subsidy for a farmer. They've evolved because we have a climate urgency. And this is the key element of voluntary carbon markets. Those that purchase offsets, they want a climate action. So they want to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or avoid emission to the atmosphere. And this is important. So they want to know that something is happening because of their intervention. And it's companies, large corporations, they are every day more cautious about purchasing offsets, because it can backfire them. It could be something that someone could say, they are just greenwashing because they are polluting, they are paying for an offset. So those companies that voluntarily put money into something, they could put it in their pockets, but they decide to finance a climate action. They want to make sure that a climate action is taken. And then in general, it's very important to have an holistic approach. And carbon is important, but the experience of voluntary carbon markets tells that often those that are considered co-benefit of carbon action, social justice, better water cycles, other environmental positive effects, actually becomes the core benefits of this type of monetary transaction. So the action taken should be holistic, and this is important. So carbon is what you pay for, But when you build a system, think holistically. Generally, when you build carbon farming scheme, so let's say a mechanism by which you pay for a farmer to be rewarded, you reward the farmer for taking an action. That system is based on these three main components, so the change that you want to create, so the agronomic practices that you finance, whether it is cover crops, whether it is using shredding the wood that you trim, or others, moving towards more agroforestry system. We have seen many examples, even in Rafa, I think, presentation, in the sustainability program or that you are proposing. You mentioned a few, and this could be the subject of a carbon farming scheme. Then the MRV is what, in a way, you use to demonstrate that those activities are having an impact. And the standards, you have to apply to a standard, whether it's an ISO, whether it's Verra, whether it is gold standard, whether it's the new CRCF that the European Union is establishing, but it's where there is disagreement between those that perform the action, those that buy the offset, and so on. So those three elements become part of, let's say, the scheme or the activity. Why, briefly, there is a lot of interest. Obviously, carbon farming is not new anymore, but it's relatively recent, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was started to become a bit more terms used. And that attracted the European Union, because obviously in the policy, in the decarbonization policy that the EU has, you have this goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2050, and that is impossible because there will be some emissions that are unavoidable, and the idea is, okay, then we should compensate those unavoidable emissions with removals. And how we do removals? Well, we have the technologies like the direct air capture, those things that are maybe a bit immature, but we can support finance and grow as a ecosystem. And then there are plants that do the photosynthesis, basically. These are the two mechanisms that we have to capture, to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Unfortunately, the fact that plants do the photosynthesis by itself doesn't entail to create certificates, because this happens even if you don't want to. You cannot stop plants to do photosynthesis. But you can build methodologies so that you can improve the work of the farmers. And so this is what the European Commission is doing, is building the system to account for removal. And I don't enter into the debate whether it's an opportunity to get rid of the PAC, because I don't think it is, but there is definitely interest in finding a way to reward farmers that implement better practices. So the generation of this carbon farming or carbon removal and carbon farming certification framework or regulation took maybe three years or something like this. It was published, so we now have a regulation in the EU about that. You can read, explain. But then it is kind of a general agreement between member states, the council, to how the system should work. Now, how then in the nitty-gritty of how, which methodology, how you apply, how you generate certificates, that is still ongoing. What the Commission is doing, and also with the support of the expert group, is developing specific methodologies for the four main land uses, so arable land, which also will include agroforestry and orchards, livestock with grassland in combination, peatlands, and forests. So in a way, those methodology would be a bit more detailed, a bit more specific, and the objective here is basically the Commission wants to have a mechanism where they can give their stamp of approval for a certificate that is produced in the EU, because you can still do your own, you want to build a project with Vera, you don't need the CRCF, you can do it. If you want the EU to kind of accept it or recognize it, then you have to, in a way, make sure that your methodology, your scheme, is compliant with the methodology they produce. That's pretty much what is happening. Those methodologies, the one for arable land, and therefore that's the interest of the olive sector, it's close to be published. My understanding is that they expect very soon to have it integrated as a delegated act into the regulation. So we'll soon have a clear mechanism where we can say, if we want to be recognized by the EU, we can apply those methodologies. The one that is less advanced is the methodologies for livestock, because it's a bit more complicated. It includes emission reduction and so on. So the delegated acts, how it will work. So you have a scheme, let's say, let's make an example. You're building a system with applying a standard, where you promote certain practices, and you have that as a scheme, and you demonstrate that you start doing it, you are generating certificates. So you go to, the process would look like this. My understanding is that they will have a sort of, the Commission will have a sort of, executive board or advisory board that will, when a scheme would submit an application to be recognized, there will be a panel saying, okay, yes, the methodologies they are applying are compliant with the CRCF, so we can say that this is also EU compliant. They are building a kind of harmonized, or they have the mandate to build an harmonized registry where all this, the information from the certificates can be stored. So there will be, in not long, maybe 2 or 3 years, we will have a system where you would be able to see those removals that are happening or are being generated because of action taken in Spain under this scheme, or in Italy, and so on, and this will be a unified registry to make sure that all the certificates are counted on in one, but also made visible in a way. And then the big obstacle at the moment is how you create the market for those certificates, for those credits, because there still is not a market big enough to absorb what potentially the agricultural sector could produce. So at the moment, what it seems to me, there are obviously many initiatives in this direction. But the Commission recognizes that they need to do something for the market. They obviously finance studies about how you generate the market or improve the market. There is a bit of a market, and it's growing, so it's not bad news, but not at this speed and the dimension that we need. So they know it. My personal impression is that the low-hanging fruit would be some sort of blended finance. So if you are building a scheme, my suggestion would also be to look at the public administration and say, we have a scheme, and we want to finance these activities, take this action for climate in the agricultural sector. And you could build a policy or some sort of subsidy of support where you can throw some money into this bucket. So, for example, we as a scheme we sell these certificates on the market, and for every certificate sold, you can add 50% of extra money on top of that. It's a possibility. It's still in the realm of option that policymakers have to start promoting this. This happens, for example, there are public money that are used to finance startups, for example. You, as a startup, and they say to you, the public administration says, if there are money that goes into equity of that startup, so if somebody is investing in that startup, we double up that money. We put for free the same amount into your bank account. That's supporting, it's kind of a mechanism to support that startup that is building a product or whatever the service, to have more finance to do the things. And it's something similar could very well happen here. And I think I'd skip this because it's okay. This is just a general, because at the end of the day, just skip to this one. At the end of the day, the voluntary carbon market, it's a market based on trust. So somebody would give you money because they trust what you are doing. They trust that you are taking the right action, that you are generating the right impact. So anything that you do to create that trust would pay off at the end of the day. So if you're building an ecosystem, a scheme, and activities, consider starting from getting together with the stakeholder, creating governance structure that share the benefits among stakeholders, everything that can make visible that it's not just like you want to finance something for yourself, but you are financing an activity for the broader benefits of society. Thank you.
Thank you for the very informative presentation, something that I'm sure we're going to be hearing more and more as these things are coming into regulation now as well. Thank you. Next presentation.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizing and the scientific committee of this conference for the honor of including me among the speakers, and to congratulate them on the excellent organization of this event. My name is Grigorios Giakoumakis, and I come from Crete, the largest island in Greece and the most beautiful. Located in the southern part of the country, Crete produces on average 80,000 tons of olive oil annually, and this is roughly 1/3 of the Greece's total production. And in my presentation today, I'll be looking at how different cultivation practices in Crete influence the quality of Koroneiki olives and oil using a transcriptomic approach. I apologize, I may sound a bit strange, but it's because of my allergies, so excuse me. So this is the structure of our presentation today, and let us begin with some introductory information. Olive oil, I guess all of us in this room are familiar with its value. It is a food product, and the bigger producer, consumer, and exporter of olive oil is Europe. Greece consistently ranks among the 3 top producing countries, together with Spain and Italy. In fact, last year, Greece even reached 2nd place. And the Koroneiki variety is considered among the crown jewel among the Greek olive varieties. It truly dominates Greece's production, making up more than 60% of the country's output. Koroneiki fruits are small, but they produce olive oil of remarkable quality with a unique taste and aroma rich in biophenols. According to the European regulations, Union regulations, in order for olive oil to qualify as extra virgin, it must meet specific quality parameters like chemical and organoleptic characteristics. For example, it should be free of sensory defects while exhibiting a fruity character. In addition, when 20 grams of olive oil contain at least 5 milligrams of hydroxytyrosol and its derivatives, a health claim can be made. Aiming to contribute to the enhancement of the value and the antioxidant potential of Greek olive oil, in the present study we investigate the factors that influence and increasing the biophenol content of the final product. These very, very important biophenols are synthesized through this proposed biosynthetic pathway that you can see over here, starting from tyrosine and leading to tyrosol and hydroxytyrosol, or alternative from geranyl diphosphate, leading to olivopane. For this reason, we focus on studying the genes and enzymes involved in the biosynthetic pathway we just saw, in order to identify the differences in gene expression levels among different cultivation systems. This will allow us to address a very important research question. Does the way that we cultivate olive tree actually affects the quality and the quantity of the biophenols that are produced in the olive fruit? In my opinion, I firmly believe that by answering this question, a very important knowledge gap that currently exists can be closed. Moving now to the materials and methods. There are 4 main cultivation systems, and those were the ones we choose to focus on. Conventional farming, characterized by the extensive use of chemical inputs with the aim of maximizing the production. Integrated management, which is an alternative to the conventional one, but in a more environmentally friendly approach, involving a more rational and controlled use of inputs. Organic cultivation, where the use of chemical inputs is highly restricted, aiming to build a stronger relationship of trust between consumer and producer. And biodynamic cultivation, which is which is similar to the organic, and is very close to the traditional way of olive oil cultivation, treating the olive grove as a living organism that coexists with nature. Thus, 4 representative olive groves were selected, one from each cultivation system. All of them were located at the same altitude and the same climate conditions. They were situated in the region of Crete, specifically in the center of Heraklion Prefecture in Kastelli Plain. This plain lays in the heart of the island, and it is the 2nd biggest plain in Crete. From this point onward, we will refer to these olive groves using the acronyms that you can see over here. Yeah, thank you. So, before I move on to this, I would like to tell you that the results presented in today's talk are referred to one specific time point carried out at the end of the season before last, January 2023. During this sampling, we randomly collected mature olive fruits. The stones were removed and the flesh was immediately frozen in liquid nitrogen in order to stop every biological activity, and the samples were then stored in ultra-low temperatures until the next experimental steps. From each olive grove, we selected and properly labeled 15 trees. These were divided into 3 groups of 5 neighboring trees, and the samples from each group were pulled together. So in this way, we had 3 different biological replicates per grove. Moving on to the laboratory work and following the IOC protocols, we calculated the maturity index using the corresponding formula, and we measured the fruit size, taking the average from a number of randomly selected olives from the labeled trees. Also, total RNA was isolated using a commercial kit, and its quality and quantity were carefully assessed. Once the samples met the required criteria, then they were enriched with mRNA and sequenced to generate libraries. After obtaining the sequencing results, bioinformatic analysis of the data was initiated. Moving on to the results, if we look at the phenotypic differences of the fruits, we can see that despite the simultaneous timing of the sampling and the same conditions of each grove, we can see some differences between the different cultivation systems. There is a divergence. It is small, but it is noticeable. Specifically in the conventional and the integrated management systems, we can see that the fruits appear slightly less mature compared to those from organic and biodynamic cultivations. This observation is also confirmed by the values we obtained for the maturity index. The lowest value was obtained for integrated management, and then followed by the conventional, and while higher values were observed in the organic and biodynamic cultivation systems. Regarding the fruit size, both length and width, the results were very similar across all systems. In our analysis, we set the conventional cultivation like the control system, and based on this, we compared the other 3 systems. The average fruit length was about 1.5 centimeters, and the width was about 1 centimeter. Therefore, we cannot say that there were significant differences in fruit growth between the systems. Moving on to the transcriptomic analysis of our samples, after sequencing the mRNA, we obtained information for 53,570 genes. As expected, due to the large volume of data, a gene filtering process was necessary. So from this soup of genes, we had to narrow down to the candidate genes of interest, and more specifically, those involved in the expression of enzymes that play a role in the biosynthesis of polyphenols. Out of these almost 54,000 genes, some were found to be overexpressed or upregulated, while others were underexpressed or downregulated. With the help of bioinformatics, an initial clustering of our results was carried out. In this heat map, we can see the differentially expressed genes among the different cultivation systems. Each row represents a different sample, while each column represents a different gene. The numbers over here, 1, 2, and 3, indicate the 3 biological replicates. And the color gradient from yellow to blue indicates expression, with low expression with yellow color and high expression with blue. So overall, we see a good clustering for our replicates, with the exception of one sample that it could be considered as an outlier. In the lower part of the heat map, we can see that the samples from biodynamic cultivation cluster together with those with organic cultivation, while samples from the conventional are more closely related to those from integrated management system. Thus, 2 distinct groups are formed. to take a step further and be more specific in identify differences in gene expression, we also generate volcano plots. In these plots, each dot represents a gene. The red dots represent the significantly differentially expressed genes, while the black dots represent the non-significant ones. Again, the comparisons are made using the conventional cultivation as the control system. On each graph, the genes on the right side of the axis are the genes that are upregulated, and those on the left are the downregulated genes. What we observe when comparing these plots is that when we compare organic or biodynamic cultivation to conventional, the number of differentially expressed genes are quite large. When we compare integrated management cultivation to the conventional, this number is quite smaller. This provides stronger evidence that the differences between conventional and biodynamic when comparing to the conventional is substantial, while integrated management to conventional, these differences are quite limited. Next, we constructed Venn diagrams in order to obtain a quick overview of the overlap for the candidate genes. If we look, for example, at this diagram, this is for the upregulated differentially expressed genes, and when we look, for example, this number over here indicates that all these genes are upregulated in the conventional cultivation when compared to the biodynamic. Similarly, we can draw conclusions from the downregulated genes. And this is the biosynthetic pathway of biophenols we mentioned earlier, and here we will focus on these steps. In particular, we will highlight two enzymes. The first is an oxidative enzyme, polyphenol oxidase, or PPO, and second, alcohol dehydrogenase, or ALDH. The first one, as we said, is an oxidative enzyme. To some extent, it is useful because it participates in the biosynthesis of biophenols. Beyond that, however, it becomes undesirable, especially post-harvest, since it reduces antioxidant levels and negatively affects the olive oil quality. On the other hand, ALDH is associated with the formation of hydroxytyrosol, which is considered as the key compound, antioxidant compound of olive oil. And moreover, it is believed to stabilize and accumulate antioxidants in both fruit and oil. So, by looking at the difference in expression of genes across the 4 cultivation systems, we can observe the following. First, note that in this heat map, green indicates low expression, while the more it turns to red, the higher the expression. Regarding PPO, we mentioned earlier. Regarding PPO, mentioned earlier, its expression is higher in conventional and integrated management systems, while in organic and biodynamic systems, its expression is much lower. Let me remind you that these results are referring to a specific time point in January when the fruit was overripe. In contrast, alcohol dehydrogenase seems to have the different pattern. In conventional and in integrated management systems, its expression is quite low, while in organic and biodynamic cultivation systems, its expression is much higher. So, in certain systems, we can see that a not so desirable enzyme, like this oxidative enzyme, is overexpressed at the time that we harvest the fruits. This will most likely affect and have negative consequences for the quality of the produced olive oil. This observation can be considered as the key findings of the study. So, to summarize, what we observed so far is that there is a similar transcriptomic profile between organic and biodynamic cultivation, a similar profile between conventional and integrated management systems, while between these two groups there are big differences. Therefore, it appears that the cultivation system of the olive tree influences the expression of genes that play a key role in the formation of biophenols in the fruit. But could these differences be related to the stage of fruit ripening? We aim to exclude this possibility. For this reason, in the recent years, we have been conducting transcriptomic analysis across all stages of fruit ripening and development using the same labeled trees. So this is the end. It's not a plot twist, I mean only of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Before we move on to the questions, I would like to thank my supervisor, Professor Philippos Veriveridis, and all the members of the Lab of Biological and Biotechnological Applications. Thank you very much.
First of all, I suppose that if all of you are here, congratulations. You are on in the last screen of the video game. And maybe you are waiting all the Congress for waiting this presentation. So I will try to do my best to get your expectation about this. But anyway, I would like to explain you the vision of the IOC about this concept, this carbon balance project, that how could be an opportunity for olive farmers around the world. Okay, so this is the results of the work of the technical unit in the IOC. It's not only my work, obviously, and I would like to appreciate the work of the head for UNIC, Hassan Zikawi, and my colleague Catarina Barreau, and the work of a very, very high expert group of working group of experts from several universities around Europe and around the world that are working very hard in the development of this project. I would like to give you these key ideas. The first is only a brief presentation about IOC and what we do. The second is a very, very brief presentation about the sector and our vision about the future of the sector. The first is the main contents of this presentation is our vision to go towards a voluntary carbon credits certification scheme for the olive sector, and finally, for very single conclusions. About the IOC, IOC is an intergovernmental organization founded 65 years ago. The headquarters are in Madrid, and we are the only international organization in the field of the olive products. The members of the IOC are the governments of the producer countries of olive oil and table olives around the world. More or less, we cover around 95% of the global production, depend of the campaign, obviously. And we have members of several countries. Actually, we have as observer countries United States, Brazil, Peru, Australia. And we have an advisory committee that is the tool that we have to keep in permanent dialogue with private sector, researchers, institutes, civil society, and etc. And the main working areas of the IOC, the most named and the most knowledge area is the standardization research. You have seen in several presentations IOC methods, IOC standards, etc., etc. There are a team in the IOC specialized in the coordination of the development of the standards and the normalization. There is another unit named Economy and Promotion involved in case of the promotion of the consumption of the olive oil and olive products in other countries, and in building the macroeconomic statistics that you can check and you can study in our website. And the first unit are our unit, the technical unit. We are dedicated on the olive growing, the biotechnique, and environment issues. And about the global production, as you can see, I think that all of you, this picture is very familiar for all of you. The production of the olive oil are located in two bands of latitude, in one in the north hemisphere and the other in the south hemisphere, but mainly in the Mediterranean area. Is the image that all of us has about the global production of olive oil. But in the last 35, this chart shows the last 35 years. You can see that, for instance, the world consumption has increased a double in these 35 years. The consumption increased more or less double. The production, we started in 2,000 tons, and now, more or less, depend of the source, or depend, you can hear, more or less, I think that we are in the 3,000 tons of production around the world. But only we cover the 2% of the olive or the fat that the human consume around the world. Okay? But it's important to put the attention in these two campaigns. For instance, from 22, 23, 24, is the first time in history that we have two consecutive campaigns with a decrease, more or less, of 40% of the production in the history. And we affirm that the cause is the climate change. In that two last campaigns, in the Mediterranean area, especially in the Iberian Peninsula, we accumulate several droughts and very, very hard temperatures in winter with no chilling hours, and in spring, a very, very high temperatures, and we have no floration in two consecutive campaigns. And the other idea that we would like to give you is about the macro trends of the food consumption by the people. The people, the consumer, want to have the security about the healthy of the food. It's obvious. The consumer is increasing his consumption. The consumer want to feel good with the food that are consuming. And the third is the consumer wants products, simple products, products easy to use, not complex process. We have no time to cook. We need to spend very, very short time in use the food. And finally, the consumer wants to have an experience with the product. If you think about this, olive oil have the 4 attributes. We have a treasure in our hands. We have the opportunity to contact with the 4 main trends for the consumer. But it's possible that by 2055, more than 10 billion of people will live on the earth. Currently, we are more or less 8 billion. 3 times more than 50 years. 3 times more than 50 years. And we have not more surface for cultivate. There is no more area for cultivate. And recently, we have observed several of issues on the mainly from a climatic perspective, with extreme weather events, several droughts, high temperatures in a period of the year never noticed. So it's important, because it's urgent, collaboration multi-stakeholder to face this situation. So the vision that we have respect of the future of the olive oil sector is not a topic. It's seen a topic, but it's not a topic. We need to produce more, but in a sustainable way. And we identify these 3 challenges: globalization, the contribution of the olive oil to human health, and the contribution of the olive oil to the planetary health. And we think that these 2 attributes are total complementary. We think that the main challenge that the oliviculture have nowadays is the climate change. We are convinced of them. So, facing climate change, we have adaptation strategies, breeding, the optimization of the resources, digital transformation, and byproduct valorization. But this is not the theme for this presentation, but for us is key. But we see the olive orchard like this. It's closer than a forest than a crop. It's our opinion. We see the olive groves as an 11 million hectares of unhuman cultivated forest around the world. And in that forest occur this. The olive groves are a CO2 sink. IOC developed a report in 2018, and we obtained this first number, 4.5 tons per hectare per year of carbon balance, positive carbon balance in an hectare of olive orchard. And we calculate too that producing 1 liter of olive oil removes 10 kilos of CO2 from the atmosphere. So this was a first number, only a first number to work on it. It's not a final conclusion, it's the first. we, in the science community, have a knowledge about this. There are a lot of evidence about these affirmations. Olive trees are well known for their resilience. There are barriers to desertification. When we plant an olive orchard, we stop the advance of the desertification from a higher latitude, mainly in the Mediterranean area. And in 2023, in the last IPCC report, for first time in the history, United Nations underscored that agriculture is necessary for fighting climate change. This was the report. And you can see how, in that report, named the carbon sequestration in agriculture as one of the main strategies to scaling up climate action. So this was the first time in the history. With all this info, with all these thoughts, we decide to go to a voluntary carbon credit certification scheme for olive sector. In October of 2023, we celebrate an international workshop. We received more than 300 calls for participating in showing experience, publication, etc. We select 30 speakers for this event, and we have more than 300 participants from more than 30 countries. And we think that we developed an holistic approach and 300,000 degrees approach with scientists, policymakers, verification bodies, companies, consultancies, projects, etc. And we designed that this picture is very emotional for me because it was the first picture that we built about the concept of that project. So it's a very, very colloquial, or it's not a professional design, but it's the concept that we had in our mind, more or less, in that days. And we thought, now, if a farmer want to sell a credit carbon, the first tip is they need to calculate the carbon balance. But the farmer, I don't know if any of you are farmer, but we suppose that the farmer don't have the knowledge to make it. So that farmer needs a technical assistant, normally a consultancy. The farmer pay for that. Second, the farmer needs to verify this report with an external verification. The farmer needs to pay again for that. But this is only the carbon balance. One thing is carbon balance, and other thing is credit carbons. Depend of the scheme that the farmer want to use to sell that credit in the market, will obtain a different number of credits, because the criteria of the schemes in the market are different. Vera normally are similar but are different. Vera have some criteria, ISO for project had another criteria, CRCF regulation of the European Union have another criteria, etc. And there is no specific methodology and a specific approach for olive sector today. All that methodologies, all these standards are general. Maybe generally in terms of agriculture. Okay? So, the farmer pay for the technical assistance, pay for the verification, pay for the design of the credit carbon project, and pay for the verification of this credit carbon project. And for now, only pay. At this moment, have 0 incomes. At this moment. And the reality is that the barrier, the economic barrier, for to access all this process is very high. So we thought that this it was critical to decrease this barrier, but it's high for all the operators, for the consultancies, the tools, for to calculate some project or this type of project are expensive. So we thought that we can add here, proposing a specific method for calculation, the assessment of the carbon balancing of olive orchard, proposing a specific algorithm for calculating in a software tool for free, designing and verification criteria, and proposing a standard for the generation of credit carbon in olive sector. With these actions, we think that we decrease a lot the economic barrier for all the operators. Because if we put at the disposal of all the operators a validated software to calculate the carbon balance, to generate the credit carbon project for the verification process, so on, we think that all the cost for all the operators decrease. And we achieve to include in the game the majority of the little farmers around the world. This was the objective. We thought in the beginning that the opportunity to access to these mechanisms, it could be only possible for big farmers due to the high cost of the process. So our objective was to democratize, if we allow me the word, the process, the economic process. So we designed this project with these 5 objectives: to provide evidence, scientific evidence about the role of the olive oil growth as a sink, CO2 sink, define a robust methodology to calculate the carbon balance, develop an easy-use software tool for the calculation of the carbon balance, design a voluntary carbon certification scheme, and analyze the role that the IOC could play in this ecosystem. And this is the concept or the conceptualization of the project at this moment. I don't want to repeat. And the project is ongoing, actually, okay? And this is the calendar. Now we are testing the tool, and next week we have a meeting in Marrakesh to approval the final version of the methodology, the final version of the software. And we are we are editing a document for the European Commission about our opinion on how the CRCF regulation are impacting on the olive growth in Europe, with the objective to avoid that the majority of the olive orchard in Europe could join the CRCF regulation framework. For finish, only 4 ideas. The first idea, all the olive growth system can be managed in a sustainable way. Normally, there are a discussion about this is only for traditional, only can be sustainable traditional olive orchard. No. What makes an olive grove sustainable is not the planting system, it's the managing practices. It's important to note that. The second, the sustainable production is not an option. There is no plan B. It's in a topic, but it's a reality. In our sector, it's a reality. And we know that the olive tree is resilient, it can adapt to the climate change, and the farmers, the scientists, the sector know to do it. Know how to do it, sorry. But the third, we are mainly olive farmers, not carbon farmers. Okay? All that practice are good for the soil, with or without credit carbon. All this tool of agronomical practice, this is not the key of this presentation, about cover crops, compost, biochar, include picking up the waste of the pruning and putting the soil, etc., etc. All that practice are good for the health of the soil, with or without credit carbon. And the fourth, and finally, but we think that voluntary carbon markets for carbon credits could be an opportunity, and we are working intensively on the development of this certification scheme, with the aim that the majority of the olive orchards around the world could join that financial mechanism. So, thank you, and we are at your disposal for any question.
Thank you. I don't think we have time for questions. One question, maybe. Do we have time? Elena, do we have time? One question. Going once, twice, no questions. All right. If you have any questions later, you know where to find them. Thank you very much for a great panel, and I'll give the floor to the organizers here.
Hello, yes. Well, we are about to finish, so thank you all the speakers, all the sponsor, everybody, all the assistants for this great international conference. It's going to, I think the last 2 days has been very intense, but my feeling is that we have something to build in the future, okay? So I have 25 conclusions. Don't be afraid, I'm not going to read it. So, we are going to elaborate a summary of this conclusion, and we are going to send to everybody in your mail list about the 25 ideas. I have taken my notes during these 2 days, but for every season, for every session. So land degradation, quality, everything. So you will have this conclusion in your email. Okay, so I would like to invite to Lausanne. I don't know if she's around here. Yes, just to the final words. So it's going to be an honor if the International Olive Oil Council can close this season. That's it. So it's an honor to have here at Lausanne. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. I am Hassan Sikawi I'm from Morocco. I am representing the director of IOC. I would like to thank everybody, the organizers and the institute, and also with the University of Jaén, we are welcoming all the initiatives of this university. We are working with them in many topics. Far from yesterday, we launched a course on panel test with more than 20 scholarships, and we organize this kind of activities. I had discussion with Juan and the organizer, and we hope that contribution of IOC to next Congress will be more significant. I would like also to thank all the speakers for their generosity. We can see that all the presentation were very rich in innovation about sustainability of olive. How we are working? We are a small staff, and the ideas come from like this Congress. So our role is to generalize the knowledge about the topic of actuality, like this one of sustainability, which is a challenge for everybody. So thank you so much for everybody, and I hope you will have a good return to your work. Thank you so much.